I would like to introduce Sukriti. Sukriti is a filmmaker based in Mumbai, and after finishing her master's at National Institute of Design, she began her directorial career in 2015 with advertising, and she's presently co-writing a young adventure comedy and producing a fictional podcast. Her other interest includes miniature photography and writing about herself in third person. So,
That's just
Sukriti,
a
please. Yes, ma'am.
little joke I threw in there. Okay, guys, hi. Thanks for taking out the time to for the talk. I'm Sukriti. I've been directing ad films for about 6, 7 years now. I'm now slowly kind of moving to long form. I just finished a series which released in August. I predominantly do work in the space of comedy and performance, and I'll be predominantly talking in English. I hope that's okay. At any point, if you guys feel like I'm talking too fast, or if you want to ask me a question, please feel free to stop and ask me a question. Uh, okay, let me present. I have mm, a very shabby deck. Can you guys see?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, cool. So, when I was still studying films, a lot of us thought this is what being a director is. The chair in the frame is basically a prop we used for a sketch, and I've never sat on the chair before or after. But kind of want to come down to the role of a director in an ad film, but I'll just briefly kind of talk about how I got here. So I grew up in Alwar, which is a district. It's a really small town in Rajasthan. And back in 2003, 4, 5, like when I was 14, 15, uh, there was like no sense of popular culture. We were kind of very limited in terms of means. We had like one bookstore. There was one theater which kind of declared bankruptcy. It shut down. So there was no MTV. So there was very limited means to kind of figure out what's popular, what's out there. I had very limited knowledge. I do, however, remember, and I've kind of plugged a picture here of this advertisement I saw in Hindustan Times at the time. And, it kind of was interesting enough to me then that I kind of cut it out, and I've been carried it with me ever since. So this is basically like a casting call for something. And, casting calls generally are very banal. But when you read it, it really drew my attention. I thought it was really clever. It's very intriguing the way the advertising copy is. I'll give you a moment to read it. So, this is a casting call for something, and they're kind of talking about our casting crew is meticulously seeking for the perfect character to suit the role in our upcoming venture. These ads are generally really, really banal and mundane. They just spell out the age 24 to 25 North Indian who looks a certain way, must know Hindi, English. So this is what the ad was. If you have a personality that draws attention, if you have an age to flaunt, if you have a body as agile as it gets, if you have the wit to make Hitler laugh even today, if you have features that can cut through a crowd, if you have a voice that is authoritative, if you have a way with words both English and Hindi, if you have all that it takes to earn the 7-digit fortune, contact us. And it's just so intriguing. It's like you don't really know what you're getting into. But I thought that was crazy. Like that somebody got this brief and kind of went ahead and tried to draft something that was, out of the ordinary. So it kind of got me interested in advertising. I thought advertising was really clever, but I kind of didn't really do much about it. I picked up English literature and I was studying and I was really miserable. And one of my friends applied for NID for me, and plot twist, I kind of got through. I think I gave it away too soon. So when I went to NID, amongst other things, I kind of realized that filmmaking is a lot of physical and mental labor. Um, but I thought, once I kind of get started, I'll be on the chair and things will be okay. So I started like making competition ad films. That's how I kind of, this was the advent of like digital advertising. So basically, sometime around 2011, 2014 is when people started, we all started putting some money together, buying our DSLRs. We could shoot on 5D Mark II, and you could actually do your entire post on a laptop. And because the clients weren't pouring in as much money into digital advertising as they are now, there was a lot of free hand on what you could do. So I started making competition ads, and then like smaller work from clients started coming in. Like, so I started picking up work for Nestle, and then Pepsi got in touch with me and they wanted me to do like a stop motion film. Uh, and I didn't know how to do stop motion, but I'd seen some stuff around NID. Um, but I said yes. And then I spent like a month and a half sleeping under my table. I had like a one room kitchen. And so most of this room was kind of used to build the set. And because we couldn't move the set since it's stop motion, it kind of, that was the only space where I could sleep. So sometimes this is what being a director looks like. And I think nobody told me that. So I thought it's important for me to tell you this. Now, I'll just kind of talk about what does a director do. And this is an important question, especially when it's advertising, right? Like, here's how it works. You have like an agency who writes the scripts. That agency has been handling the client for a while. They'll send the client a bunch of scripts. The client will like one and say, okay, cool, we want to go ahead with this. Now, the agency will seek directors and producers, or what you call it, a production house. And then they'll say, can you execute this for us? And then we'll put together a crew. So now, roughly, on an ad crew, a good ad film, like with a certain amount of budget, you'll have roughly 60 to 100 people on the set. And I have somebody who is doing the production design for me. There's a cinematographer who's shooting it. There's somebody who's already written the script. I have a team of ADs. So the larger question is, what is it that a director does? Because there's nothing very active. Essentially, on set, I'm just supposed to look at the shots and direct the actors. Uh, and this is a word you'll hear a lot once you guys start directing is vision. And it seems like very heavy handed. It seems like, if I'm not making Jurassic Park, I'm just selling a pack of chips. What's the deal with the vision? So the vision is basically your point of view. It's how you see the world. Because I work in comedy, it's what I think is funny. So when a script comes to me, it's my job to figure out what is it in the script that is funny, and if it isn't, how do I find it? And then then the larger job also becomes about aligning the rest of the crew with what you think the set should look like, what you think the costume should look like. And when you're doing comedy, here's, I can't say this enough, is that every single department has to orient towards comedy. If anything that you do has to make the comedy better, has to make the thing funnier. So yeah, so here's the thing, like when you're on set with those 60 to 100 people, nobody else knows what the film will look like besides you. Everyone else just has like a piece of the puzzle, but it's you who's kind of put all the picture together. So you're basically anchoring the vision, which everyone else is kind of building off of. So I want to specifically kind of talk about 2 or 3 things that I've done in advertising, and then I'll move to like a long form discussion. So I'll talk about like one of the first bigger films that I did, and it was a corporate film. Now, if you know anything about corporate films, they're really boring. And if somebody is not sitting on your head and asking you to watch it, you wouldn't watch it. There's no reason for you to watch a film, a corporate film. Basically, a corporate film is, like for instance, Kotak Mahindra makes a corporate film. They'll talk about, what their larger work cultures like. They'll show you around the office. They'll talk about what they do. And, then there's a call to action, which is whatever they want out of the corporate film. Now, the client was Babajob, which is a startup. Um, at the time, Babajob was, still very new and fresh, and not too many people knew about them. Their job is very simple. What they do is they're like the middleman between the employer and the employee, and the employee is often like mostly for blue collar jobs. But what this film, and here's where like target audience kind of comes in, right? You need to know who you're making the film for. They weren't making the film for the blue collar workers to tell them, how to kind of log into Babajob and all of that. They were making the film for recruitment. They wanted people, they wanted kids in IIM and IIT and other places to look at it like a tech company. They wanted to be perceived as cool. This was my only one line brief. They want to look cool. And another thing was, of course, while looking cool, you have like a big agenda, which is you tell them what Baba Job is about, what the people do, and all of that. So I decided to go the route of comedy because I didn't want it to be boring, and I didn't want a company that looks stiff. I wanted a company that looks like they don't take themselves too seriously. They can take what they do seriously, but I wanted like a fun film. Another thing that I realized fairly early on is that I'm going to be working with people who work there. They're all non-actors, so the burden of comedy cannot be on the actors. So I'll just show you. This is, I think, like 7 years ago. I'll show you a part of the film. Have you ever wondered what a step-by-step introductory guide to an organization looks like? We did too, so we made this. We thought we could do better.
This is Bangalore. This is Bangalore for real. This is Monday morning in Bangalore. This is office hours. This is what office hours look like. This is a woman going to work. This is where she's going to work at. And this is Baba Job. This is us on an average day. This is us trying to coordinate. Also, jazz hands. This is our Monday morning coffee. This is Baba Dog. His name's Berlin.
Baba Job is a digital job marketplace for entry-level and informal job seekers. To put it simply, we upgrade lives.
Let me explain. This is Person X. Person X is looking for a job, but the process of finding the right job is tedious and disappointing. This is Person Y. Person Y is an employer who is seeking out for the right candidate, but not sure what's the best way to go about it. Person X can choose to make a profile on a website or take assistance over the phone by giving us a missed call, which eventually leads to him being employed with Person Y. Success. This is the product team. This is the team posing for a photograph.
So I'll keep it to this because I think there's quite a lot to see. But largely, the tone of it, the burden of comedy is in the voiceover. It's not on the people. And it feels like the kind of film where you would like to see a little more. The comedy is predominantly, like, if you watch the whole film, you will see that the comedy is predominantly limited to people looking to the left and the joke comes through, people looking down and the joke comes through, somebody slipping something and joke comes through. So you need to know who you're working with in comedy, and that's how you craft your jokes. And that's extremely important. If you're working with bad actors, that doesn't mean that the joke cannot land. It just means that you have to craft a different joke. So in the beginning also, when you're making films, you'll realize that you are also making films for yourself. You're kind of trying to figure out who you are as a director, what your vision is, what your comedy is like. And we need to know that we cannot be stuck on one kind of comedy. I don't only do slapstick. I don't only do, flat deliveries. I don't only go really, really underplayed. It depends on the script. Especially when you're doing advertising, you really have to play it by the script. So I'll show you guys one more. And, here's the big thing in advertising, right? This is where I was writing the script. But oftentimes, or all the time, you'll basically get you'll get a script. And then you have to mold it. So this is for Savlon. There is, I'll show you guys an ad, but I'll just roughly tell you guys what it was. And this is another one of, where the director comes in, which is about interpreting the script. So I got a Savlon script. This is sometime last year, November, December. Everybody was selling masks and, people were going crazy selling sanitizers and everything. So Savlon wanted to do a PSA. And the larger idea was that people are carrying masks, but they're not wearing it. So it'll be like sitting on their chin. It'll be hanging from one end of their ear. It'll be, somewhere in the vicinity, but not on their face.
And they didn't want to make like the ad really preachy or, sort of virtue signaling, but they just wanted like a fun ad. So they told me a script that was supposed to be funny. And the script was this: a guy goes into a lift. He looks to his right and he sees this woman whose mask is sitting on his chin. And the voice inside his head says, Are isne to mask nahi pehna. And then a guy comes in and he looks at him. His eyes move to the left and he looks at the guy and he says, Are isne bhi mask nahi pehna. And then his eyes go from left to right, and the people get a little conscious and they realize that he's been looking at the mask. And they put him on. They put the mask on. Now, there is nothing obviously funny about the script. And this will happen to you a lot if you're like, somebody will tell you I'm going to tell you something really funny. And nobody will laugh in the room. And somehow magically people will expect the film to be funny, which never happens. If somebody hasn't laughed in the room when the script is being read, then the film isn't funny. So one other important rule in advertising, you're dealing with 20 seconders, 15 seconders. You have to use your time very judiciously. Again, like I said, everything has to be oriented towards making something. If the larger tone is supposed to be funny, you have to make everything to make it funnier. So there's this rule in writing, in features, whatever, wherever you guys write, show, don't tell. And I think it's, the larger idea is that if you can show something without stating it, it's always better, because the audience also feels like a winner. They've cracked the code. It's a mystery that they've solved. And so I decided to use music in a way where you can completely eliminate the voiceover. So music is interesting, right? Like you can use music in many ways. Here, I thought like the idea, like when music is used like in jugalbandis and other things in many ads, but basically when you go a tarkit tha and tarkit dhin, it feels like a left and a right and a left and a right. And if I go tarkit da dhum da dhum da dhum, it feels like I'm going down like a spiral. So music can be used interestingly. So we basically decided to do the entire campaign, and in the campaign there was no voiceover. It was only music used in different occasions differently. I'll just play you one ad.
बॉडी पे मास्क पहनने वालों की ठीक तरीके से पहनिए. मास्क है, मजाक नहीं.
Issued in आपका इनका उनका सबका interest by Savlon Swasth India.
Okay, another interesting thing is to use the voiceover of a kid. It just automatically makes it not so, you can say whatever you want. It just feels like a little easy on the ears. I don't hold anything against the brand for telling me how to do a certain thing. So a large part of your role as a director becomes about interpreting a script. I'll talk about one more ad. We did an ad a long time ago for Nestaway. Nestaway was the startup, and basically they're kind of like they were kind of like housing.com, where there was a website, you could go, you could rent houses, and there was no broker in the middle. So their whole insight was that people spend the same money for brokerage can actually go somewhere else. So basically what the creatives did was they'd written a script for the radio, which was, it's an English sort of setting. No, it's not an English setting, but the dominant language was English. But basically it's a guitar class. And the guy is playing the guitar, the tutor, and he says, let's say whatever, Gokul can't come to class tomorrow, and everybody kind of sings along. And then he says, because his parents have to pay the brokerage, and the girl, like the guy in the setting is like a bit like, what the fuck. So now the thing is like, okay, again, every single thing is very, very important. When your script comes to you, you shouldn't take anything as a given. They do not know you are the director. So you really have to own a script. So just because a writer writes that the script has to be set in a music place where people are playing the guitar, it doesn't have to be. So I find Indian classical interesting. I also like the idea of sidekicks. Somebody who's just playing off of the other person's energy. So we decided to play it off in an Indian classical setting and make everything Hindi.
So this is what the ad was.
कल से लतिका क्लास नहीं आएगी,
लड़का क्लास नहीं आएगी,
क्योंकि पापा को देना है ब्रोकरेज।
कल से लड़का क्लास नहीं आएगी, क्योंकि पापा को देना है ब्रोकरेज।
Brokerage taking away your kids' hobbies? Introducing brokerage-free family homes from Nestaway. With easy search, easy move-in, easy maintenance, and great savings. There's always room for more with Nestaway, the new way to rent.
So that's the ad. The only thing to remember is whatever you are proposing, it has to make the thing funny. So I'll talk a little bit about another role of what, sometimes we feel like we're making films in isolation. It's just about me and the script and making the script funny, but it is also about understanding the brand. Like we did a film for Idea, and we basically spoke for a really long time about just the casting and the tonality of an Idea ad in comparison to what an Airtel or a Vodafone ad will look like. You can play all three and you will realize that the reach is very different. So you really need to understand who they're trying to reach out to, what an Airtel audience is. And even if an Airtel audience doesn't look like what it is in the ad, that's the aspiration that they're kind of building on. They want their brand to be seen that way. I actually I do want to talk about like a goof up. I was presenting, we had a PPM sometime, I think about 2 months ago. And PPM is basically a pre-production meeting. It's, you have it with the client and you basically present every single thing in relation to the ad, like storyboards, art direction, sets, costumes, casting, everything. So it's basically to minimize communication and also to get everybody on board on the same page with the clients. So yeah, so basically it was for a frozen food company, and a little bit before the meeting, everything is happening on Zoom now. So even this meeting was on Zoom, and a little bit before the meeting, my producer messaged me saying, please slide in the word HGG in the conversation. And I said, what does that mean? And it means hearty, gregarious gastronaut, which is kind of how they identify their customer. It's like their ideal customer. If you ask a brand who your customer is, they will shut their eyes and they can see a person. They know what the person's hobbies are, who they are, what their interests are, what time do they come back from work. Like brand managers are really tight like that. So they were that stiff, and I kind of got into the meeting, and in the first minute of the meeting, when the random chatter is happening and the meeting hasn't really started, somebody asked me if I'm a fellow meat lover. And I said, I've actually quit. I quit last year. And so the meeting started, and after like the first 2 minutes, there was some technical issue that started happening at their end, and they were like, oh, we'll get back to the meeting and all of that. And turns out they were really uncomfortable having a director who was a vegetarian. So you really need to know who you're like pitching against, and you are pitching to. And, I don't think I have to categorically state that I think it's really stupid and it's not something that happens often, but it's an interesting study in, knowing who you're working with. So I'll just play like 2 films, which we did for Instagram. It was a long, big campaign, but only a few are out. So I'll just play the first 2, and I'll just talk about Instagram as a brand and how things like casting and other things kind of come into play. So this was one, and let me play you another one. Okay, so these are 15-seconders, right? Like it means that every single frame is very, very important. Now, in understanding the brand, you really have to look at like the kind of people we cast. In Instagram, you can see that the girl, I don't think you've seen her anywhere else before this. And we really went out for a casting that people haven't seen, because unlike other brands, like Instagram really means it when they say we want people like you and me. So you really want to cast people that you can kind of, meet in colleges and other places, and people who don't look like they're made for they're built for the screen, and who don't look like actors. So that's one important choice that you make. Two, they're very big on pushing the culture forward through things like music. So if you see, we've kind of done like in both the films, one is like a little bit, this whole Dapang Dupung street culture from Chennai, which goes into gaming. If it was another brand, I would have perhaps gone for like an interesting 8-bit music kind of score. But because their entire identity is about pushing the culture forward and more local, the choices of music were made. That's why. So like Lavni and the drums and all of that. Another interesting thing, which you guys, by the time you start directing, it'll all build up all the more, is you'll hear a lot of people talk about the first frame, or the first 2 seconds, or the first 3 seconds of an ad. By default we're doing 20 seconders, right? And these are Instagram ads. They appear on your stories. So basically you'll be scrolling through your friends' stories and you won't realize, and it's an ad. And you'll see it's like Instagram sponsored, whatever. Now, the larger thing is, one is the aspect ratio. We have to play everything very differently than what you see everywhere else. It is 1:1 as opposed to a 16:9. So you really have to, see things with that lens. Two, the first frame becomes extremely important. You will see almost every single brand kind of dwell on it again and again, because here's what happens. Like, let's talk about the guys' films, right? What is the first frame? The first frame is 3 boys who are looking at something. And they're looking at something and it looks a little curious, and you can hear some music and it's interesting. Now, you're basically like just increasing the chances of somebody letting it play. And beyond that, there is a very little control that you have. You're just hoping that somebody would watch it. But as long as you let the story unfold, that's what's important. So you have to pick how you frame. Like, it can be framed in many different ways. I could have started with a big long shot, expose the setting and all of that. But the choice is to make it slightly more intriguing and slightly more curious for the audience. So those are things that are important. Okay, let me talk about long form. So sometime last year, I got a call and they wanted me to do a sketch comedy show. And a sketch comedy show is basically, so I don't know, I don't think you guys have seen it, but like there was Jaspal Bhatti and Flop Show. That was our larger inspiration. Jaspal Bhatti used to do a sketch comedy show, and really brilliantly. And I think in this day and age, there are very few ways and means to do satire or make like do any kind of commentary. So it was it felt like a very interesting idea for me to do. I hadn't done long form, but of course I said yes. And here's the thing about long form. So the difference when you guys are moving from advertising to long form is that nobody has the budget. So you're always kind of, in a situation where nobody has enough money for anything. And let me just kind of explain it in a way which is easier. An ad is roughly, an average ad would be like anywhere between 25 lakhs to like upwards of 1 crore to how much ever. A show isn't that much. We spend one day shooting a 20-seconder. Whereas in a show, in a decent show, you will perhaps be shooting for 6 minutes. By shooting for 6 minutes, I mean, those 6 minutes make it to the edit. So you'll be shooting 6 minutes as opposed to, a 20-seconder. We had to shoot sometimes, some days, even around 10 minutes, which is a lot. So, and you still have the same number of hours. So it's challenging to do a long form, predominantly because of the, conditioning you have when you're doing an ad. But here's the thing, like we kind of talked about it, and the larger, I don't know how many of you guys have seen a sketch comedy show. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the format. Here's what a show is. An episode has stand-up and sketches. And sketches basically, you know, like you'll see TVF and AIB and others do the sketches on YouTube. So this was also created by Khamba. So he was in the writing team, who was from AIB. So a typical episode will have 4 sketches and will have stand-up sprinkled in. And all of the sketches and the stand-up is kind of tied with a specific theme. So for instance, environment or trains or education or sports. So when you don't have a budget, you kind of just center yourself as a director on what is it that you want to get out of the series. And when it's a comedy series, so with the sketches, here's what I decided. Like the larger idea was, let's commit to the setups. So for instance, if there is a sketch about a customs officer who have caught like this sports person who's a professional air rifle shooter, and the joke is that we as Indians don't know any other sport besides cricket. So they cannot fathom that there is a sport called air rifle shooting and they're treating him like a terrorist. Then we play it off like how an interrogation scene is. Let me just show you guys some stills of that. Yeah, then we played it off completely like an interrogation scene. So for instance, if we are doing a mockery of how expensive school seats are and we want to show like parents auctioning in an auction and bidding for school seats, then we played it off like IPL auctions. So what they're saying is absurd, but we are playing it straight, including, you know, the art and everything. So if we had the sketch, which was around the post-match presentation ceremony, and the joke was that Ramiz Raja is calling a Pakistani cricketer on stage to give a speech. And the Pakistani cricketer doesn't want to go on stage because he's not comfortable talking in English, but Ramiz Raja, knowing him, will push him to do that. So he's doing everything he can to dodge just going on stage. So of course, we kind of like shot it like a post-match presentation ceremony would be, and we turned Suresh Menon into Ramiz Raja, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, so the larger idea is again that you need to kind of work all the departments to aid the comedy. I'll show a few stills of like some behind the scenes, and then I can move on to showing some of the sketches. This is for the stand-up, you know, you're kind of prepping. This is the set. Ranveer Shori and Vinay Pathak were doing the stand-up. And so this is us just kind of blocking how we are going to shoot them. And this is on the day. This is the set that we built. A lot of times being a director is just this. You're really, really tired and you just have to tell people how to hit each other or how to do a certain thing. And you're kind of getting all the departments, you know, on the same page. So I'll show you guys a slightly more cerebral sketch, which is called The Dying Art of Fast Bowling. And it's basically about climate change. It was in our environment episode. So the larger setup is that climate change has led to pitches kind of drying up, and the concept of fast bowling has gone extinct. Now, here's where you as a director also come in, because then I wanted to do it like a documentary, like a BBC documentary, and just really play on the tropes. So, you know, like I want a white woman to be the host. I want like people to kind of follow her wherever she goes. So I'll just show you a small part of the sketch, and then here's the thing with the sketch comedy show, right? We're kind of playing with so many different formats that it's just funny. And it's also, yeah, so this was one of the sketches, and we kind of stuck to this whole idea that when we are doing a format, like let's commit to it. So if I'm doing a documentary, I want to do it full throttle. There are lots of things here, you know, like one, of course, the white host, the way we kind of, you really have to rally people. This was a random village we went to, and we really had to get them going and let's follow them, and you can be here and you can be there, and they all got acting and it was funny. And of course, the music, they always use santoor and tabla and, you know, overly traditional music. So you just kind of play with the tropes. I do want to get into like this whole subject of budgeting, because if you see like the spinner, we did this whole like Japanese cola ad, And that was not really a creative choice. That was a choice that was made out of budgets, because we had a sketch, which I will show you now, which was two Japanese guys who are sitting in a tea house, and they're talking about something really profound about life, and somehow Indian Railways kind of come into play. It's a very absurd sketch which kind of talks about, I like that sketch because I feel like satire can be done in more ways than one. But we absolutely had to build a tea house for that. And so because the tea house was building, we couldn't afford an additional setup for him. So we decided to like tweak where we will place him and turn it into like a Japanese cola ad, which again became an interesting creative choice, because then it shows like the spinner has more reach than just India. I'll show you guys the tea house thing. There are some obscenities. So again, the train thing we were kind of building on. So this was the Japanese sketch is our cold open to the trains episode. And again, building up on how, you know, when something is in English and then it's dubbed over in Hindi, you kind of can still hear the other thing. And again, we're kind of committing to this idea that these guys they're playing it straight. Because it's comedy, the people don't need to, it is still their reality. So I'll just play this. So this was, again, it's two guys. It could be a very serious Japanese, whatever part of excerpt from a film. But sometimes comedy comes out of playing it straight, where the people are not really acknowledging that it is comedy. And that we kind of used as a rule for the entire thing. I wanted it to be played straight. So there's this sketch that we did, which was called Minister's Speech. It's one of my favorites. And I just want to talk about like of certain choices that you make as a director. So Minister's Speech was an interesting sketch. The setup was that the Minister of Environment and Industry is the same, which has happened in India. So it's basically the same person who's sitting in the same office, turns their chair and is sometimes in the Office of Environment and sometimes in industry. So you basically are creating two sections within one space. And there are some creative liberties you're taking with it. Another thing was, how do you differentiate for the viewer which is the minister, which is the Office of Environment and which is of industry? So we've tried to make industry, my larger thought was to make it very opulent, like, you know, to have more gold, to have more reds, to have more wood. While on the other side, when you see, this is, you know, some stills from the industry side, which look very obviously, you know, you kind of plug little jokes here and there. And then you have, you know, environment, which is a lot more light, which has a lot more light coming in. There is a complete, and there is a sort of thematic difference also between the light and the dark. And, you know, plugging smaller things like this sad little plant, which is just sitting there. While we had like little posters, I mean, this is another thing, that there are some things that you will do which people will notice, and there are lots of things that will not come through in the final sketch because there's so much that's edited out, but you just have to live with it. You still have to do what you have to do. So we plug like lots of posters of conservation, this, that, whatever, on this side, while on the other side, you know, you have the horns and other things that are sticking out. So there is a, you know, like a yin and a yang situation happening. So I'll just play a little excerpt, like a little part of that, and you guys can see it. The setup is that the Minister of Industry and the Minister of Environment is the same person. It's the Environment Day, and the writer is writing a speech for the Environment Day. But every time she turns around and she negotiates a deal on the industry side, the writer has to cut something down from the speech. Yeah, so it kind of carries on, and basically everything from the speech kind of goes for a toss. I think I'll show just one last thing, which is our cold open for sports, and then I'll conclude it. There are a few interesting things happening here. Once you guys have seen the sketch, I'll talk about it. Point of it being that, you know, people don't particularly, again, a lot of our sports episode was about other sports and how much attention is paid to, you know, people who play other sports and all of that. There are like, so there is a traditional trope of a rishta meeting in films, in ads, in other places. And what I wanted to do is subvert it from the get-go, because the boy's family doesn't have the upper hand. And I wanted to set it up from the very beginning. In any other setting, you know, you will have the girl kind of come in. But here, the girl's family, the casting choices, the costumes, they look a more, you know, put together. They don't want to have anything. They kind of have their shit together. They're here to see the boy. Nobody is asking how the girl is or what she's done. It's all about the boy. So the relationship, this whole table turning, it kind of happens from how you set it up to the costume choices. Again, like, it's a very small detail, but setting it up in winter makes it just a little bit more interesting than setting it up in summer. So these are like things that you can play with. You know, you have to use like rain and sun and summer and winter. Like, you set up like something during, if this was during monsoon, I would have used thunder in some way to kind of, you know, accelerate the comedy. So I think wherever you can bring life, you should. And wherever you can, again, the choice of music, you know, we use TT balls to kind of play to make the bed of the track. And that's, again, you know, one of those things where you use every single thing in your hand to really plug, you know, the comedy. That's largely what it is. I just want to conclude by saying that one of the important learnings that I've had is that when you want to do comedy, you have to create a happy set. You cannot do comedy in a tense environment. So as a director, it depends on you how happy or how you know, sad the people are on set. It depends on how much shouting you do. So you really do have to keep that in mind. Just overall, I think you should, which I think again is something that if somebody would have told me, I think I've always said yes to things, because if you like something and you don't think you're ready for it, you will never be ready for it. So you should, I use it like a, you know, how you teach swimming, where you sort of throw the person in the pool and they learn how to swim. So you say yes to things and then you work really hard to figure out how you execute it. And because it's all a part of the learning, and you shouldn't look at limitations like limitations. Sometimes good creative choices, interesting opportunities come out of it. And you know, you'd rather be like sleeping under the table and creating something that you really like than be sitting on a big set and making trash. So I think that's an important lesson also. And I conclude.
Thank you so much, Sukriti. And I think we all love the short films and a lot of details actually to learn from them. And I think it took years for you to understand and make that marvelous piece. But I think we are very naive to understand that. But hopefully we have a lot of taking from here.